All right, it's 8:59. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mr. Bramble, you want to do a roll call, please?
Mr. Schweitzer.
Here.
Mr. Iyer.
Here.
Mr. Marvel.
Here.
Mr. Saxon. Here. Mr. Crapo. Here. Ms. Conley. Here. And Ms. Helm.
Bernice did text me last night and told me she would not be able to make it today, so. We have a quorum. Additions or revisions to the agenda. One revision is Kyle Carlson from Baker Tilly has to leave right at 9:30, so we're gonna go ahead and let him go at 5.1 instead of 5.2. That's okay. Anybody else have any additions or revisions? Kyle, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
We're gonna approve our minutes real quick and then we'll get to it.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes from last meeting? Would entertain a motion to approve. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was John Marvel and Karen Dyer. All right, Kyle, it's all you. You can go first.
Okay, thank you. So first, I think we can start with the food and beverage tax collections. So for November of 2024, there was 278,000 collected. In November of 2023, there was 265,000 collected. So a little bit more year to year. And then when you compare 24 to 2023 through November, there's been a 1%, just over 1% increase in food and beverage collections this year. And moving over to the cash flow, just some things to point out. In November, the city has now paid the 250,000 that we show at the top there. That has been paid, and then the Vigo County CVB has also paid the 125,000 that we show. So those are actual revenues. And then one other thing that stands out is if you look in October under miscellaneous expenses, it's 31,000, which seems a little bit higher than other months, and that's because of insurance services. And that's really all that I think I have to point out, and I'll turn it over for questions.
Carrie, anything you want to add from the finance committee perspective?
No, the only thing I noticed on the 2025 projection, we took the museum, Larry Bird Museum line item out of there, where we have maybe one final, Mark Madursky, our owner's rep, is coming back in just to do some touch-ups to the label copies that are inside the glass enclosures, and Mark's extremely inexpensive and has been a huge help to us. So that would be the only thing. We paid final expenses, you can see, in October. So yeah, that's the only thing I have to add.
Brandon, anything?
One thing is, first we'll probably reach out to our USI. A lot of what we've been doing in the city is kind of like an insurance audit, see if, because we've changed some practices, we've added some things in, and it's actually lowered some of our insurance costs. So just have a conversation with him about next year's insurance, if there's anything we can do or any updates. For example, Antonio pointed this out, like they have the sheriff's deputy now in the Larry Bird Museum. Little decisions like that do have an impact on insurance. So I'll reach out to John if that's okay with the board and have a conversation with him about it.
Anything else? All right, Kyle, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Chanel, update on the convention center.
Okay, good morning. We are reporting on the month of October. So I'm looking at the event summary. We had 14 events in October, which equated to 24 event days. We had a lot of event days because we have Amazon that is here in the building. They booked for about a month and a half. So they're doing trainings here with various employees. Total attendance for the month was a little over 3,000, and gross revenue generated from events and parking was a little over 165,000. You'll see the list of October events. Amazon had 9 training days. With the Aviation Indiana was here for a 3-day conference. One of the other large events that we've done was, Rose Coleman had their 50th gala here. They had about 500 attendees. This was the largest, plated, full service, everything service, nothing preset, event that we have done today. So, it turned out really well. There's a lot of planning that went into this. We also had some staff that came in from a couple other buildings to help service this event. But October was a very successful month. Very good. On our operations side, we have had some freezer issues since opening. We've had like some constant ice buildup in the freezer. Central Kitchens did the install, and in the beginning, they had come out and tried to repair a couple things. Well, we recently found that we had frozen ice up in our lights in the top of the freezer, so condensation had been dripping into the lights and freezing up in there. So we had B&B come out, and they actually just fixed it last week. So they serviced the freezer. They had to go in and seal the inside of the walk-in. So you've got like a metal interior, but then outside that metal interior wasn't properly sealed. So they've now gone in and fixed that. So that's now complete. And then B&B is also installing a second sprayer for us in our single bay sink on at the start of the dish station, which will be helpful when we have really large events. We can have 2 people spraying dishes as they're going down the line. So B&B has really been a great partner for us. Anytime we ever need anything, they're here immediately. So they've really been a big asset. Like I said, we brought in several OBG staff. We brought 6 folks in from Owensboro and one of the banquet managers from St. Charles Convention Center to assist with the Rose Coleman celebration. We had, I think, probably about 50 people working that night. We had a lot of temps here, just because when you have everything that's full service, you can't preset. And you've got people busing tables, there was wine service and coffee service, and it's a lot of moving pieces. So they were a big help to come in and help us direct people back in houses to, here you need to go here, you need to go there, so that we're getting people in the right places on the floor so that we can make that event run smooth at the end of the day, because you have really well. Went through monthly fire extinguisher, elevator, AED inspections, just the norm. On the sales and marketing side, during the month of October, sales contracted 6 events totaling over 52,000 in revenue. They still have 43 leads with leads and repeat business for 24 and future totaling more than 480,000 and 2,700 hotel room nights, and they've got 19 contracts that are out. So that's about 214,000 revenue and 487 hotel room nights. I won't go through all the sales and marketing initiatives. The only thing I'll really highlight on right now is we are doing our big push for New Year's. We've got our New Year's celebration that's coming up. So we have ticket sales that are out. We have a Boots and Bling is the theme this year. So it is it's a country theme. So it will still be a very chic type event as we've done in the past with a lot of food, and our VIP tables get the extra additional appetizers. Our band that we booked is not from here, so we try to get feedback from our guests when they're here, and they don't want bands that they can see at a bar locally. They want new entertainment. So we spent a lot of time really looking at bands, and the band that we booked is called Country Co. And they're out of Chicago. They're more of like a concert style band. So we wanted to make sure that we had someone that was very upbeat, someone that's really going to entertain the crowd. So we think it's really going to be a big success. So looking forward to that. And we've got our breakfast with the Grinch coming up. We've got 185 tickets sold for that. And then breakfast with Santa is coming up as well. The Grinch is more popular than Santa. So we're looking forward to our first year of doing both of those events. And then you can just see kind of the advertising, the Google ads, impressions and things like that. I won't get into all of that. And then there's, going into the next pages, you'll see some of the Facebook ads that they have out there, and then the analytics. Moving to statistics. For 2024, we've got 24 events still that we have definite contracts to finish out through the end of the year, which brings 30 hotel rooms and over 200,000 in revenue. We've got 4 contracts out and then 6 proposals still. These are pretty much just small meetings or holiday parties. And then looking at 25, you'll see that 25 is really going up. That's really where our focus has shifted to getting that repeat stuff on the calendar and anything new. And then 2026, looking forward to trying to get more business a little further out. We found most of our business really is booking inside 12 months. It's really hard to get that long-term book right now. The window is just kind of shortened a little bit, so I'm hoping that will grow a little bit more, but we do have a tentative on the calendar for 2027 that we're working on as well. So current funnel is 1.1 million from pretty much today forward. And then you can just see the October stats, events by type, gross revenue by type, attendance by type, and then the comparisons of year over year. Moving back to the Larry Bird Museum section, year-to-date attendance since opening is over 6,300. Website has had over 6,000 views on it. Total users 3,200, and then you'll see new users. So we always have new people that are coming. We did give the ISU history department. One of the professors had contacted me, and we actually have one of his students is on our staff, and was asking about internships in the museum. And I never really thought about this, but the Larry Bird Museum is really considered a history museum in the eyes of the school, so it fits their internship criteria. So we did a little tour with our students, so their students could see the museum and kind of understand how we operate it, what goes on in there, how it came to fruition. And then we do have one of the students that is working in there every Saturday as part of kids internship, and he also works operations for us as well. So knowing that we can use our students as interns, in there is great to know. We also had Evansville Living came in last month to do a story on the museum, and it's actually out now. Just saw it last night. So if you go to evansvilleliving.com, it's right there on their homepage. There's a link. Next month I can send that to you, or I'll include it in the report next month. But it's got a nice little article that hit all of their subscriber base in Evansville. They don't have to pay for anything. Free marketing. So then you can see monthly visitors. And then what I did include was some trends since we're getting close to the end of the year. I did not include the first couple months that we were open because I felt like it was kind of an anomaly now that we've kind of slowed down. We can have like regular business in there. I put together based on the last 3 months, what the visitor hours, like what's our prime visitor hours and days of the week. So this first page will show you every day, and this is in military time. So you can see where our peaks are on each one of these days when we've got the most visitors. And then at the last page, you can see where our demand is by day of the week. And it's interesting just looking at a 3-month span that Friday is our busiest day of the week, not Saturday and Sunday, which I was kind of surprised to see that. But I'll keep collecting data like this so that we can see where our peaks and our lows will be. So that way, when we want to look at adjusting hours of operation, then we've got, more data to kind of support that. Questions?
Nothing?
Powerfully inform everything, and we also put the inform everything, the greater sure trying to promote the labor and getting the conduct of their own that we can do when they come here, targeted at food.
All right, anybody have anything else? No? Okay, move on. All right, Indiana Theater, so you all have, first of all, let me preface this with Studio Access and Garmon Construction have worked really well together. You do have a phased approach to the Indiana Theater that you can take with you and review. This isn't an actionable item, this is just for your information. It is interesting that the immediate needs on page 1 and 2. The cost is around $2.7 million, but I asked for a significant contingency and a cost escalation that has raised that to $3.6 million. Do I think we'll need all of that? I don't know. But that would be something to consider in the immediate time, in, the first quarter, second quarter of 2025, if we want to move on with some of that stuff. Kurt Green with Studio Access has been great, for me in organizing Green Sign Company and Guarantee Roofing to work together. They're meeting next week, I believe for the second time, to go over the canopy and, get that sign install started. That's still yet to happen this year. They both committed that both of those things should be finished by the end of the year, we're getting close here, so we'll see. As for any interior leaks with water, we have been watching that for about a month or so, because we did have a little bit of rain. So far, after cleaning off some of the things on the roof and making sure the gutters are clear and there's no water backing up on the roof, it seems that everything is draining okay, and there's no water on the inside of the building. I believe in phase 1, 2, there was some mold remediation, lead remediation and stuff like that, so, just take that with you, think about it. We'll move back to that probably the first of the year. Eddie and I just had a conversation a few minutes ago. The seats that are in the vestibule, thank you, Karen, are no good for us. We'll never use them. So we're gonna try to get some quotes on those and try to sell them to get some revenue for the theater. And we'll throw that back in that budget line item, for the theater specifically. Still working with Rob Lundstrom and try to get some of his stuff out of there. CIB offered to set some dumpsters along with Ohio or, 7th Street and allow him to start doing that. No action there yet, but that's okay. We'll get there eventually. We all know that theater is near and dear to his heart, so I'm not sure what he needs to do there, but he's basically the caretaker for the theater. He's been a tremendous help to me to meet people there and stuff like that, so. Things continue to move on. I didn't ask Studio Access to come today because I felt like we could just have to stand out and everybody can review. Plus I didn't want to pay him to come today, so. Sure. But, any questions?
So with some of the closing opportunities, grant wise, that are no longer there for no one's fault in this room, there's stuff at the state that's changed, unfortunately. I think a realistic goal for this board to consider is maybe just looking at phase 1 and getting that building survivable. And then honestly, writing RFP and looking for a buyer to get this off of our hands, who's gonna take it, own it, and operate. We could look at a public-private partnership, but I prefer to just kind of get this out to the private sector. Knowing that, we'll do something to get it torn up. But that, the total number on the project is not quite palatable, but the phase 1 numbers, I'm very appreciative that you did do that. Because that gives us an actual number that we can look at and say, okay, if that's gonna short up, get it moved on, then we can shoot for that.
Yeah, the phase 2 portion of this project is a little over $21 million. But that includes the big MEPs and stuff of that nature. The first phase does include the roof, which, believe it or not, was only I say $363,000. So that's not nearly as bad as what many of us thought it would be. But Brandon, you're right. The only way to advertise this building is to correct phase 1, and that will make it valuable so that investor doesn't have to do those things. Which we'll talk about that next year, but the immediate needs will have to be addressed first quarter.
Does it still include major renovations to like the lobbies and having restrooms and multiple elevators?
Not in phase 1, but phase 2 is.
But phase 2 still represents what they originally presented.
Yeah, it represents, and we talked about that. There's a lot of things in there that we could absolutely remove. I mean, I think,
Kept it as it is.
yeah.
Added,
So this phase approach is the Taj Mahal approach to the theater. With knowing that in phase 2, there are things we could change or reduce and remove actually. like 2 elevators, only having one, some of the furnishings, the equipment, stuff of that nature. Phase 2 is an approach to open it up as a actual theater, not like the amazing theater, but, rock concerts, comedy shows, movies. But it's still a humongous cost.
Does phase one get us it back open as it was when Rob was running it?
Here when phase 1 would get it back open where people could, we can kind of have this conversation on sidebar beforehand. Our insurance isn't a big fan of people going in the theater as it is now. Versus a bunch of trash in a second. There are areas all over the building where the roof has fell or pieces of plaster, so they don't want to walk around there. Phase 1 would clean all that up to assure us that that would no longer happen. Phase 2 is the beauty. It's the getting real deep, MEPs, the plaster work, all those things. Majority of the windows, stage, sound, lighting. Stuff like
Chris, I would really like, before even beginning phase 1, to have conversations with anyone interested. I don't wanna put money into something that if we do end up to the point where we sell it, that we only need to do half of it versus all of it. Having some type of letter of intent or an interested party involved, I think would be advantageous.
Yeah, our ROI is terrible. Whatever we invest here, and just being transparent, it's not gonna be good for us. We're funded by user tax, which is great, if this was a property tax project, when we were using county funds, it would not be fair. It wouldn't be fair to the taxpayers. So we have to consider all these things.
What was the agreement? The gift agreement?
The gift agreement, not very good.
Did they give us an insurance?
Can't remember. To be honest with you. I reviewed it one time, about 15 months ago. We'll have to consider all this. And actually, Eddie, you and Jeff might have worked on that gift agreement.
I'll pull it.
Thank you for this, Chris. I think this is helpful. It's kind of what, obviously, when Studio Access gave us their report, it was a bit overwhelming. So I appreciate Studio Access and you breaking this down.
Yeah, they've been great to work with. It's awesome that Kevin is a local guy, truly passionate about the theater. It's just wrapping our head around what this community can actually handle when it comes to a theater. Knowing there are multiple theaters throughout the community that are already in place. And is phase 1 enough to just have an occasional movie in the theater? Or even a comedy show without the fancy lighting, fancy seats and stuff like that? Absolutely, that can happen. But the winter months are gonna be terrible, they'll have to be closed because the plumbing and mechanical's not good. And we still have the ADA accessibility, which some of that we could include in phase 1. To make everything accessible, but it would still require some hardcore work inside the theater. It's been great to have, I think we've done a good thing for the community to have these conversations openly. And obviously we don't have too many community members here. It becomes very controversial on social media with any decision we make on the theater. But I think we are doing our due diligence and the best to move forward in a way that's not going to inhibit other projects in this community that the CIB might do. So all things considered, we just have to approach this the right way.
And, Chris, to kind of back you up on that, I would welcome any person in the community who wants to make this controversial, that in the next CIB board meeting with, a check and a letter of intent, ready to open it and participate. While I appreciate the input, the kind of Monday morning quarterback comments can be frustrating, because it's like, hey, this would be different if someone was who is super critical, is willing to financially do this, but if you are not, understand that we are doing our due diligence to look at all options. I empathize with you on that, because I'm sure it is frustrating, because I know it's personally frustrating, but yeah, I welcome any of them to show up to this next board meeting with that check to help us out there.
Yeah, the biggest thing to overcome for any investor is the MEPs. You got a 1920s building that has never had any MEP investment in 100 years, basically. And to overcome that obstacle would probably be around $8 to $10 million. Initially, before you can even do anything else. To make it better. Forget water, forget mold, nice open too, so. It's a big investment. Any other questions? Anybody want help? I'm just kidding. Anybody want to help with the theater? I'm just kidding. I'll volunteer bring it. All right, there's no other questions. Eddie, any update on legal matters?
So, to piggyback off of, what you brought up, Chris, regarding the seating, I'll probably bring a resolution to the board next month to declare those, seats surplus property, and then we'll, put it out for sealed bid, sometime in January. Anything that's over collectively 5,000, you have to go through a bidding process. So I'm guessing we might have that in those seats.
Yeah.
We'll make that available for bid. There was a question, my understanding of last month's meeting, sorry I had to leave early, about remote participation in the meetings, in our meetings. Your bylaws do allow for remote participation. I would caution anyone from doing so unless it's an emergency, just because in order to be a voting member, what you can count towards the quorum, you have to both be seen and heard. Meaning we have to set up some type of a Zoom link, it couldn't just be the phone call. So if you do want to fully participate, we need to be in person, or we need to plan ahead as best we can so that we can facilitate here how we're going to set that up. I'm sure we have the ability, we just need to be able to set it up ahead of time. There's also rules about how often you can do it. But if anyone has questions about it and does think they want to participate that way, get a hold of me ahead of time, please, and we'll make sure we get it put together. And then lastly, I know we keep considering these switching to a quarterly meeting. Again, I think that would be appropriate in our January reorganization meeting, where we can set up all of next year's 2025 meeting dates at the same time, get that out to the media. And then obviously if we need to do something in between, we can always set up a special call meeting in between those quarterly meetings.
We present dates at the December meeting for the quarterly meetings, and then I would want to check our organizational documents. I wanted to recall that there was an attendance requirement, and if, going quarterly, I just want to make sure that you miss two, you're not in violation of any attendance requirements. Can you check on that as well?
Anything else for me?
I don't think so. Anybody have anything? Okay, Eddie, I'm gonna let you lead this conversation with Howard if you want to.
Oh, perfect. And again, my understanding is we had some questions about art spaces, the funding. I reached out to Hallie a couple of weeks ago. She was great. I called right away. It started to kind of hold my hand through the process since I wasn't here when that was originally put into place. You have in front of you a presentation with, I believe, whatever phase we're in at this point of the art spaces project. And Hallie, if you have a minute just to kind of update the board on where you're at the project and then your funding and when you anticipate an invoice coming to the CIB.
Howard, you don't have to say what we want. We want to put you front and center. Or you said say whatever it is.
Okay. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Allie Mitchell, I'm the executive director of Art Spaces. So we have been working on the Turn to the River project for well over a decade. We dedicated phase 1 in 2022, which is the revitalized plaza between City Hall and the Vigo County Courthouse that includes that big granite fountain. And we are currently working on phase 2, which is, as if there weren't enough phases, we've phased phase 2 into two separate phases, so phase 2A and 2B. So in your packet, you have our latest concept images from our design group, which is Taylor Seeker Williams Design Group. They're based out of Indianapolis, and they did the design work for the first phase. Phase 2A is what we're calling the reflection room, which is on the south side of City Hall where that ribbon memorial was located. It's gone right now, but it'll be coming back. That went out to bid, in the fall through the city of Terre Haute and, is currently under construction. It's technically a 45-day construction contract, but, that's obviously weather dependent now that we're getting some rain. And then phase 2B is an event space, or gathering room, which is located on the north side of City Hall in that big grassy area, in the parking lot. So the reason that we've separated them into two, like sub phases is because of funding. So the $450,000 that the CIB is contracted for, with art spaces acts as a match for our Ready One, award, which was $150,000. So it's a 3-to-1 match for nonprofits. So you all provided that match to us, I believe, in 2022. Yeah, thank you. As you can see in the packet, phase 2A is significantly cheaper than phase 2B. 2A is about $350,000. There is going to be a change order, which will likely lower that a small amount. And then phase 2B is over $2 million, so there's quite a large gap. We currently have funded, for phase 2, over $1 million, but, total for both parts of the phases. But we do not have enough yet to fund phase 2B, so we're moving forward with phase 2A. We have $125,000 that is coming from the city of Terre Haute. It'll come this year. And then we have about $66,000 that is remaining from Ready One that we will have to spend sooner rather than later. And then the remaining, which would be like, that's like 290,000, so like the remaining 60-ish thousand. The question is, do you all want that to be invoiced to you this year? Out of that 450, or would you rather have that 450 come all out of phase 2B? Which, I mean, we're still a pretty large amount away from phase 2B.
What's your gap?
For being completed with both projects.
We're about $1 million short.
And
finishing phase 2A and B, you're $1 million short.
so if we give you the money, can you do the projects that can you spend the money adequately without having the other $1 million that you don't get out?
Not like we can spend a portion definitely towards that construction cost that's happening now. As far as the rest of it, it would have to, if we for some reason cannot fund the remaining amount, it would have to be a conversation on how we like kind of phase out phase B construction wise. So that's just not a conversation we've started yet because we're still pretty confident that we can raise that last amount of funds.
When do you think y'all have it raised?
We're hoping to begin construction on that phase in 2026. Yes, but I can't guarantee anything, obviously.
And to kind of throw a wrench in all of that, the county has moved forward with their little boulevard roadway too. And we
Yeah.
included this group in that conversation too, so. There are some things that they might choose, not speaking for you,
No.
but they might choose to do in the process of redoing this little boulevard to the north of the courthouse.
Where the old gym?
Yeah.
That's what we would consider as phase 3, which we didn't have intentions of moving forward on, but since the county had needs, since the jails moved, for the drop off and accessible parking and stuff, we've kind of started that conversation. So that, you know, we're working together so that neither of us are inhibiting each other. As far as that.
pay for all of them boulevard projects?
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is they submitted a plan to the county and we gave that to our architects and we took all that into consideration. And the next step is, once we get to that point of pouring concrete and things, we'll have a little bit more of a conversation of where they might want water, where they might want electricity access. And things like that, we'll put all those in place to prepare for it.
So are you saying that the cost of B might go down because you're gonna take up some stuff in phase 3?
No,
Okay, all right.
no, no, no.
The 450,000 that you all have in the contract that we have with you is for phase 2. If we, I mean, so that phase 3 isn't in funding consideration for that aspect at this point. So,
I just wanna clarify something.
Yeah. no, I know, it's a lot of phases and,
So phase 2A, and you have all the funding for it.
yes.
And then you have phase 2B, which is $2 million, and you have approximately half of that funded.
So the total, we have approximately $1 million for the entire phase 2. So we would have about 700,000 for, it's like, I forget the exact number, but we're close to $1 million on that part of the phase of.
Which includes our 450.
Yes,
What was that, Karen?
Which includes the 450. Okay.
so we have 450,000 committed from you all, 150,000 committed or provided from Ready One. And we have 400 or 500,000 from, the Oakley Foundation to be distributed over 3 years. So they did their first distribution in 2024, and we'll do one in 2025 and 2026. And then, we also have, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head on what the city has pledged, but they have at least 125,000 for this year. And then I think I don't quote me on this, but I think there's more in the future, in the coming years from them. I don't know exactly what that is.
Okay, so unpledged, what's your deficit for phase 2?
It's a little over $1 million,
Okay,
yes,
just making sure that what you're saying is pledged and what we have is the same thing.
yes, yeah, it's all that number, sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine, I was just, I
know.
coming this way, and, so, okay,
So
thank you.
Yeah.
you will not start any of phase 2, sorry. Yeah, phase 2, part B
Yeah,
project, really use column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I know.
Part B until you have all your pledges committed for the construction.
At least a significant amount, we just don't wanna get to a point where, we're in the thick of it and then there's no funding for what's happening, what we would like to happen there. There has been conversation about phasing it out and doing like certain parts of the infrastructure and first and then going in, but it's so much easier to do it all at once, obviously. So that's kind of what we're holding out for at this point.
So you asked a question.
Yes.
You asked if, if the CIB wants to invoice this year or next. And you have expenses to be paid this year?
Yes, we have about $60,000, give or take worth of expenses this year that could be invoiced to the CIB or could come from that Oakley Foundation money. And so it's just really what your all preference is. Would you rather have it all come out in the same year or the same?
Yes,
same
I would say yes. I would prefer if you have other funding that you can invoice. And then our 450 all be done in the same calendar year next year, that would be great, if that's feasible.
And we are looking at 2026, not 2025, because we still have to fund that's when yours would come out in phase 2B, if that's
In 2025.
26.
But theoretically, you could be ready to start January 26th.
We could be ready to start whenever if someone gave me $1 million right now, I could start in like a month. So, we are at the I think we're 60-70% design for that phase. As far as the design development goes, we've just paused it because the next part would be to go into bidding, like to finalize and bid the construction documents and stuff. And, just since we're not fully funded, we paused design development for that. They have a large portion of the design development for to be completed, so. Once we're funded, we can resume that, and it would only be a few months before it could be finalized and sent out to bid.
Go ahead, I just didn't want to speak on behalf of the entire board about doing everything in 1 year, so I would leave that up to discussion, but my preference would be all in one fiscal year.
I'm gonna ask a question about that. Is there an advantage to doing it all in 1 year, especially when we have the Indian theater, big project?
It would just be held in cash, so we invested.
I would prefer not to give out the money before they need it. I mean, we're gonna, we have to invest it, we can invest it. Is there is there a moratorium on the use of these funds, so do we have a timeline?
Not that I'm aware, it's just a pledge on, it's just a pledge of CIB funding, so.
Okay,
And we have a contract with them, so
okay.
we'll be, assuming phase 2 moves forward and they invoice us and they've met their end of receiving the funding that they will manage. We're gonna be on the hook for it whenever it happens.
So you're saying 2026?
Is our hopes, yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to keep that in mind for both of them next year. I mean, we are in the budget for next year, we're 2026, because that's still gonna be a line item, so, which is fine, but. You know, what,
Do it earlier. Right.
I hope so.
Yeah, if anyone knows a billionaire who wants to give you money.
Terry Connell,
And you did not receive a grant.
We did not receive grants in funding, especially because of the Lilly endowment for the arts. That was kind of what I think.
anything else?
Raj was here to explain it.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry, it's all so.
Well, let us know,
confusing.
let us know if, you know, between now and next month, if something happens with the Oakland Foundation. keep that.
No, I have it, I already have it, so we're good on.
We're good. Okay. All right, thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments from CIB members? I have a couple that I'll go last. Are you paying attention? I gotta tell you something. So. We still know that there has been a large amount of funding given to pros consulting for the feasibility study for the athletic complex. That's still out there. Yeah. We have, Mayor Sacco and I have met with RGL Solutions, Rachel specifically, to talk to pros consulting, to take that humongous project that they gave us, that was what, here, 125 million. And reduce it down to something that this community could potentially afford, with the CIB or CBB taking the lead on that. Pros Consulting is doing that. We've also contracted with Envoy, which is a firm, land management firm. Let's talk about the land, we all know we've had that discussion out east and things of that nature. So that project is still out there. We're trying to find something that this community is willing to participate in when it comes to either a sports district TIF, a funding mechanism to the CIB, CBB, willing partners from the city and county, or even regional partners from Clay or Millionaire Park that would be willing to participate in this regional effort to draw a crowd for this athletic facility. So keep that in mind, 2025 as we continue to move forward with that. So.
That be broken down into 3 phases of originally.
Yeah, but kind of like Indiana Theater, Emily, that Pro's approach was still at that $125 million range, so $180 million. So what we're trying to do is have them reduce the scope of that project, still give us a phased approach if necessary, or find a project in the $50 to $75 million range that this community can afford, some type of something.
Wasn't part of Valley's turn to the river, was it?
No,
But we gave them our pretty good.
yeah, it's not. Yeah.
we have to be everybody committed to the sports complex.
So I guess we'll just continue to have that conversation in 2025. And I think we're still waiting for another firm to give us something. Okay. We'll have more next year.
Is that, do we still have like a new projects committee?
Yeah, but I mean, guys,
I just don't know if that's something that, those types of discussions, whether it's media, like you're asking for help with media. You know, we're asking for more information on the sports complex, I know.
We, turned new projects into very early last year, and new projects just focused on the very early opening and then have it.
Basically, yeah. So maybe in 2025, we'll make sure that committee's fired up again. And willing to participate in sidebar meetings about specifically the theater and sports complex. I just don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with not much information at this point.
And I think that, I don't know if that's discussion what we have for officers, at the board meetings, because I believe that election has to happen then. And at the same time, we usually look at our committee assignments, so I think it's all kind of would fall into place if we take all that into consideration.
So that's all I have. Karen, do you have anything from the CVB perspective, or anything?
Just that, we're having our big, CIB free, event Saturday. All the people are coming in during today, we're looking at making some improvements to the course in advance of the, CIB one in 2020. Area. We're expecting 600 runners, about 5,000 people. Last year.
I'd be kind of chilly.
Well, I will lie about the sports complex in the other counties. They, play doesn't, they don't have the hotel tax. Park has a hotel tax, but there's a significantly less than others, and they're the largest one in the region. But the chamber is got a whole group working on regionalism, giving you a partnership, so.
Any other questions, comments? Terry?
I'm glad we're in here, but I am struggling with hearing and seeing in here a little bit, so, so your comment, am I paying attention? I'm trying really over here. But, no, I don't have any other comments, I didn't get an opportunity to thank Neil. I know October, and the rest of the staff was a extremely busy month, and I know through the holiday parties and the holiday season, so good job, guys, and we're very appreciative of the way that you're leading this facility and.
We have a lot of staff that really cares about the facility. And I want to see you. Good
Well,
team.
if you can hear me, keep in mind that while I love meeting here at the convention center, it would still be easy for our minute taker to have this at the Buell County Government Center. Because we're paying staff of Buell County government to come here.
But I think that means that we need to decide that, especially if we're going to a quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
And where that's gonna be, if we're gonna post it one time, then we need to make that decision.
So Eddie will probably have that conversation with somebody.
Absolutely, yeah. Dates, meeting, place, time, all that simultaneously, so we'll need to decide that, at least start talking about it next month.
All right, well, our next regular board meeting, we moved up a week to December 18th, to adjust for everybody's schedules for Christmas. So would entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye. Aye.